Podcast about sports, about sports, about sports.
About Aggie sports, baby. Howdy, Ags. Welcome to the tailgate, home of Aggie football. Today's episode is brought to you by Matthews Electric, full-service electrical contractor in the Brazos Valley. No job too big, no job too small. Call Blaine at 979-220-6403. Light up your home, light up your life. And today's episode, I'd like to thank Mr. Blaine for sending the tailgate a little bit of swag, the Sarge hat, baby. Breaking it in. Appreciated that from Matthews Electric. We'll get plenty of use out of this one. Folks, don't forget to email us at agstailgate@gmail.com. Subscribe on the YouTube channel. Ask me some questions. Put some show ideas out there. You know, we're going to be in the middle of the season here pretty quick. We're about 3 weeks away from opening night. And then after that, we're talking game day. So if you got some stuff that you want to talk about before the season starts, shoot it over to me on YouTube, at the Gmail account at agstailgate@gmail, whatever you got. Okay. So we do have some comments from some folks on the YouTube to get into today. And actually, before we get into that, with regards to Blaine over there at Matthews Electric, let's ask Mr. Matthews to make himself available for the show. See if he wants to come on. You know, now that he's got some swag up here. All right, if you know Blaine, give him a call 979-220-6403. Ask him for some business too. All right. So comments on the YouTube channel. We got Doc Chiro. He says he agrees with the expectations of 9-3 or better. 10 should be doable with schedule, roster, better coaching. And I think that last piece is critical. And you know, the more and more I watch these guys at football practice here in the fall camp, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. I am really excited about what I've seen from the new DBs coach, what I'm seeing from the new O-line coach, you know, is in comparison to what we've seen in the past. You know, I'm expecting a lot of improvement there. And just the fact that you've got the coaching staff, the better coaching staff, that tells me this is going to be a better football team. And last year's football team with the poor coaching staff had opportunities to go 9-3 or better, and they didn't. But better coaching, very doable. Pete O'Neill says Elko needs to hire me. Well, thank you, Pete. Send that message over to Elko. I am, you know, I'm currently employed, but you know, I'm at least willing to listen. I'm always willing to listen. Never know what comes up. You know, just let me know, Elko. Give me a call. We can talk some X's and O's. We can talk some good team building and things of that nature. I love it. All right. Tyler Eubanks says BJ Mays will be cornerback 1. Count on it. He said he thinks Thomas got burned a lot last year and believes it'll be hard to see enough improvement to catch others. Well, I see your point, Tyler, but a couple of things I'm going to have to disagree with you on. One, I thought Thomas showed a lot of great things last year. There were some moments where he got beat, but he was in position a lot of times, just wasn't making plays on the ball. I'll say that was a problem for the entirety of the secondary, which shows to me that's more of a problem because of the coaching staff. And it feels like this coaching staff is doing a much better job of getting them out there. Not to mention, the coaching staff themselves has already said that Thomas is right there in the mix and he's competing for one of those starting spots. So he's going to get some time. The other thing that I need you to take a moment and keep in mind is, you know, Mays transfers from UAB, where he played 1 year in the American Athletic Conference before coming from Incarnate Word, right? And that was a team that was 4-8 and ranked 130th defensively. I'm not trying to beat down BJ Mays. I really am not. I think he's definitely in the mix as well. I just don't necessarily agree that he's number 1 and everybody else is fighting for 2, right? He's going to be in the mix. I think he's going to be a good productive player. 6'1", 195, nice size. They like that kind of size. You can tell from the guys that they're bringing in. Elko's looking for that type of size at cornerback. But don't forget, and he's a senior guy, right? He's a senior, played a lot of football, lower levels, but played a lot of football, and that's a good thing. But don't forget, Javon Thomas was a top-end recruit, fellas. That dude is a athletic beast. Athletic beast. He's also 6', 195 type guy, right? Good size. He is going to get in the mix. I promise you. Mr. ATM says he agrees. It's all about the Aggies, not that orange team. See ya. A couple of news and notes to get into. They named the 12th man, Nada Owusu. And so congratulations to Nada. I'll tell you this, the guy is a full effort guy. He's a big time, going to be a big time contributor special teams wise. I'm excited to see him out there. They had some good candidates and the team voted him in. So that's a great thing. Another little news from this week, Notre Dame with some injury losses, obviously looking forward to week 1 competition. Their starting left tackle is out for the season. They lost one of their starting defensive linemen out for game 1. 2 big time contributors for that team. Obviously, a big loss for them. You don't wish any injuries there, but it does affect the game coming up. Press conference yesterday and the day before with some players. I love the fact that Elko is not the only guy talking. He's got both of the coordinators out there with Bateman and Klein. I also love the fact that they had a number of guys and players out on the day before to speak to the media. Always like to get some exposure for those guys. Besantis came out and spoke. Stewart, Anderson, I think, was the other guy. Thomas also came out and spoke. So that they had a good group of guys on both sides of the ball there, and getting a lot of folks some exposure. Any takeaways from the press conferences? We've normally been very critical of some of these press conferences. I'll tell you that, not a ton to get out of it right now. They were very subdued with regards to, who they were praising and who they're, where things are going and who's been standing out, stuff like that. But there are some things that I think if you listen well enough, you could pick out of this. One of them is that you could expect that this team is going to have the running game as a big and focal part of their offense, right? It's very clear. It's very clear to me that our boy Colin Klein, sort of starts and bases that offense based off of their running game. And this year will be no different, but more importantly, not just the running game, because we're familiar with running game. We've had, a coach that likes to run the football the last couple of years, even though then, when things, kind of get to a point where you should be running the ball sometimes, he was a quarterback, so he liked to just chunk it out there. But of course, only within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So one of the things that I love about what he's talking about, and we've heard this before, so, let's wait till we see it, but it makes a ton of sense. You've heard me talk about it all the time. Running game and play action pass, and putting the two things together, and being able to be aggressive and explosive in those sets, right? Early in downs and doing those things, because, making things look, packages looking the same. It was one of our biggest critiques of our prior play caller that, they paired basically the running game with a short passing game. So you're not really stretching the defense at all, and safeties are able to actually play both of those real nice and tight to the ball. Cornerbacks are very aggressive on first move and those types of things. So being explosive, being able to attack down the field off the play action passing, and then bringing in a little bit of some double moves and things like that, it's going to be great. I think it's nice to hear it. We want to see it executed. We've been calling for that explosiveness, which has been missing from this offense. And that's going to be a big change if we actually get that production. Along those lines, it is, I think it's becoming more and more clear Noah Thomas is going to be the guy. I think Noah Thomas is going to be the guy. Number one. the number one receiver. I don't think longer we go through this, the more we see in practice, it seems like he has definitely developed into that dude. And one of the things that we heard Colin Klein talk about is the fact that he is moving them all over the field. And so he's done a great job of studying the playbook to where he can play all three wide receiver positions basically and do some different things. I also was very excited to hear that some of the young guys are getting some love. And why is that? Well, we know notoriously over the last few years, it's been sort of a very lacking in rotation at the wide receiver spot, which doesn't make any sense, right? Rotate those guys. Let's get some guys on the field. You want to get those young guys some reps, let them, sort of get their feet wet and do all those things. And along those lines, a couple of young guys that are getting recognized, Bethel Johnson and Isaiah Williams, both getting a little bit of recognition for what they've done so far here in fall camp. We'll see what that leads to, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here as we go forward. But you can tell that this is going to be a group of receivers that they do get some different guys on the field, have some rotations and different guys for different things, right? So defensively, something that we picked up on, Ricks and Bussey, two guys that hadn't been really seen by this coaching staff, right? Because they weren't available in the spring. Bussey just got here. Ricks was hurt. And it does seem and appear to be that those guys are making a pretty big impression. So that's pretty big. Adding that group, both of those guys to the quarterback room is, two 5-star guys. That's pretty impressive for this team. And I think it's going to be a big step and jump, especially after seeing Bussey. I'm going to tell you, he doesn't look like, your regular old freshman coming in. He looks like he's ready to play. And so I'm excited to see him on the field. I'm excited to see if they use him in offense at all at some point, get the ball in his hands, in space and let him do some things. So another defensive sort of commentary that it's very clear because you're not hearing it from one person. You're hearing it from multiple. Cassius Howe is going to be a big time producer for this defense. He is going to have some reps there. Stewart has taken his game to another level. And so you start talking about these defensive ends, and it really tells you that it sounds like there's going to be a lot of different packages and rotations, pass rush packages and so on, what we used to like to call NASCAR back in the day. So those are all great things. And then we heard, Bateman's going to be up in the box. I don't think any surprise there with Elko on the field and that type of thing. I think we all feel pretty comfortable with Elko as far as his defenses and things like that, right? I talked about some of the concerns there, but overall, that defense is going to be pretty good. I still don't know if Bateman really adds that much. I don't know if he was a great hire. We'll see. And I think it's going to come out in reality on what we see from those linebackers and from that linebacker group, and specifically probably more that second linebacker than York, right? I mean, I think York is a guy that basically, anybody can, he's going to be in the right place at the right time, right? He's going to work his butt off to be correct. So what does that other linebacker look like? And I think we'll learn a lot about Bateman as we watch that guy play. All right, today's topic, depth chart, baby. We're going to go into the depth chart here. We're going to talk about guys that are going to be, the main guys, and then we're going to talk about the guys that are going to get some reps in behind them. The discussion here today is brought to you by Frida Homes, building Aggie dreams, custom home builder with over 15 years of experience in the Brazos Valley. If you're looking for someone that cares about you and the details you care about, contact Frida Homes. Give Justin a call at 979-450-4466. When you call, just remember, everyone loves their Frida home. So we're talking depth chart today. Let's start offensively. I think, the first position we're going to talk about is quarterback. I think we all know Connor is the man. He's got an uncanny sense of, the field and where where the holes are and where to deliver. And he's great, always on time, just his timing and his just distributing the football, right? Like he's got such a solid feel, instinctive feel to the game. And you can see that. You can see that when he plays out there. You can see that when he delivers the ball, sometimes into tight spaces, but he knows exactly where to put it. Is he physically the most gifted guy on the planet? No, he doesn't have the strongest arm. He's not the fastest guy, but he's a good athlete and he's got a strong enough arm. But more importantly, the guy absolutely knows where to go with the ball, right? It's instinctive to him. Not to mention he's a hard worker, but he's going to be the leader on this offense. He is going to be the man, and he's going to stay healthy this year. That's the best part. I'm calling it. Bet it now. Connor will be healthy this year. But besides that, we've got an incredible competition between Henderson and Reed for the backup spot, right? We got a couple freshmen in behind them, and those guys are going to keep making their way up that depth chart for sure. But this ain't their year, right? That backup spot's going to be Henderson and Reed, and right now you can tell like it's a competition, fellas. And what they're looking for from that player is consistency, right? Consistency. Know the plays. Understand where you're going with the football. Be consistent in your decision making. Be consistent in the way you do things. And that's the big thing. That's the big thing for that backup role. I think that that's what they're still searching for. And neither one of these guys has. They've shown the great stuff. They've shown the good plays. They've shown. Now they've got to get into both of those guys got to show consistency in that role. So that's going to be big. I'll be honest with you. I think Reed's the guy. I think Reed has got, and maybe he's not the backup, but if there were an injury, which there's not going to be this year, maybe the next game, Reed's my starter. And why do I say that? Because maybe Henderson's experience allows him to easily take over in the middle of a game type situation. But ultimately, if you asking me who's going to be the most explosive guy, the biggest producer offensively, I think Reed's going to be a better quarterback for that. I do. I actually do. And we'll see. We'll see what the coaching staff decides and what they're seeing every day, right? I mean, we talk quarterbacks about work, right? Quarterbacks about work, about showing up. Yeah, sure. If you're Johnny, you don't have to do that. But for most of those guys, that's what it means. Did I put in the time? And am I getting results consistently? So moving on to running back, I think everybody sort of knows Moss and Owens are top two, but everybody's forgetting a little bit about Daniels, right? Who's probably kind of the do everything guy. Moss is probably the guy getting the ball handed to him on first down, right? For the most part, he's probably your starter. He's getting the ball early and often, with Owens coming in, maybe taking on some more of the plays where they put them in space and different plays where maybe on the outside, outside run game. But not only that, maybe using even both of them and being able to do some motion and misdirection with both of those guys. I think those guys are both on the field quite a bit. And Daniels will be sort of the change of pace to those two guys, right? Because he can kind of do a little bit of everything. And he's a good inside runner, great vision, right? Great vision, and catches the ball well. Like he can do a little bit of everything, And so I'm excited to see that running back, really come together. And I haven't even, mentioned the son of Emmitt Smith, who's looked good out there, who's looked good out there as he's coming off the injury, a little injury situation and starting to get a little bit more comfortable, but he looks good out there. Does he get into this rotation? I don't know which one of those three guys. Why I would take one of those three guys off the field for EJ Smith, but maybe he gets in the rotation. Hopefully, there's no issues with injuries. But Moss has had some of that in the past. I don't expect that from him this year. I think the Moffitt effect is going to help. But with Owens, you're going to want to see the big plays, the big plays. That's you. I'm ready to see some explosive stuff out of him. How can we get him the ball in space? Can we use him in situations, in passing situations, getting him down the field, right? Open out of the backfield on a matchup with a linebacker? Jeez Louise, man, that's a mismatch. And so being able to use him as a big time mismatch at times, I think that's exciting. The possibility of that's exciting, and I'm excited to see what Colin Klein specifically does with how they set that all up. Once again, I'm also excited to see some of that misdirection, maybe a little inside-outside game with Moss and Owens on the field at the same time. Love it, love it. But I do expect those guys to be sort of the top two, and with Daniels getting into the mix and getting into the rotation there as well. And if somebody starts to sort of, come to the forefront and be better than the other ones, well, then maybe that changes. Early in the year, 3-man rotation. And I'm going to tell you this: all three of those guys could be extremely productive, especially in this offense. Wide receiver. This is an area where folks have really doubted where this team stands as far as the talent and depth that we have on this team at wide receiver. And, I'm going to tell you, I'm starting to feel real comfortable with this wide receiver group. And why do I say that? Noah Thomas is a guy that has really, really picked it up this year. You can tell by how excited the coaching staff is to get him the ball, right? And the way they're talking about it. And so Noah, to me, I think has become sort of the clear number one. I know in the past I've talked about Moose, and I think Moose is right there. Don't get me wrong. And Moose is obviously one of the starters. If you ask me, and from what you've seen in practice and things like that, right? Moose is a starter in that group, and that dude catches everything. And so it's exciting because that guy, with the plays that he can make, that he's shown that he can make, big play guy, over the middle and stuff like that, paired with a Noah Thomas who's an athletic freak at 6'6" in the way he moves, an athletic freak, and then Ja'Day Walker, who's your other guy, right? Those are your top three. And Ja'Day Walker, with his size and his ability to his ability with his route running and the things that he does there, and sort of just being able to sort of make contested catches and do those things. I mean, to me, those three guys are big time players, or that can produce pretty big time numbers on this offense. But more than that, I'm excited to see Allen on the field. And he is going to get tons of reps. He looks great in practice, man. He has looked great in practice. He's not one of those, not like an athletic freak out there or anything like that, but he's a good route runner with really good hands. I mean, he gets to his spots. I'm excited to see him do some things, and he's going to get into this rotation because I think we're going to see 6 different wide receivers get some playing time at times, right? And so those numbers are going to start to increase, unlike the years before. Not to mention, they're going to get some opportunities over the top to make some big plays. Allen is going to be in that group. Barber, when he comes back from injury, will be in that group. I fully believe that. But once again, we talked about some of the young guys that have really started to step up. And, Isaiah Williams, Bethel Johnson, they've shown some things. They're already getting a lot of pub from the coaching staff. What they've been doing, the things that they've been doing out in practice. You can see it. And I think it's important because, I love to be able to see that these young guys are actually going to get reps so that when Noah Thomas decides to leave, we got another guy that's going to step in that's already played a bunch, right? When Moose decides to leave, we've got another guy that's come in and played a bunch. Ja'Day Walker, same thing, right? These guys have got to have reps and get better and better each time, and they do that by getting on the field. But most importantly, I'm going to tell you another thing. Really spending some time watching Williams in practice, and I mean, for a freshman, his route running and change of direction and his ability to get open, I think I'm already impressed with that. Excellent route running, especially for a freshman. And I think that's what's going to, his work, the work he's doing there is going to get him on the field. I really, really believe that. Cyrus Allen, we talked about, is going to be a contributor. I was impressed with what I saw some physically from Jacob Bostic, actually, another young guy that's joining the program as a transfer. Very physical type receiver, working his butt off. He's probably not quite there. He's a little behind that other group. He's gonna, can he get a rep or two in there? Probably, yeah, maybe. Playing some of those other, those games where when this thing is way out of hand, things like that. But I think this guy's gonna as we go forward next year and the year after that, I think this guy's going to be a guy that's going to be a contributor for this football team. Keep your eye out on Jacob Bostic. I think he's got some tools. A guy that I previously have been sort of high on and seems to be falling a little bit behind is Tees. And I was really hoping that we would see more of him with his speed and the things that he brings in that area. He's going to have to catch up to some of the other guys that are showing it right now in fall camp, right? And I think that Mike is going to be one of those guys that probably doesn't see the field a ton this year, and is going to have to earn his way onto the field next year, right? We'll see where that goes, and maybe as the year goes by, he picks up some things, right? Maybe as the year goes on, he starts to develop some of the things that coaching staff is looking for. But right now, it doesn't seem like he's in that primary rotation, secondary rotation. So looking forward to see him continue to grow, but I don't expect him to be a big contributor this year. Those weapons, that group of weapons to me is plenty of wide receiver weapons with the ability to make big plays. They've got some guys in Bethel Johnson who can run. They've got a guy in Noah Thomas that can get down the field for sure and use his size, right? So you've got a number of different types of players out there. Like I said, Cyrus Allen, who's a guy that can get open. And when Barber comes back, I think he's another guy that can produce big plays. I'm excited to see that group. And then put that together as receiving threats with the tight ends. I'm really excited. Look, Watson looks great out there as sort of your receiving guy right now. He's probably the one that looks the most fluid. You look at him running his routes. He's able to get open. He's got his cuts are just a little bit quicker, a little less rounded off type of situation, right? And so I really like what I'm seeing from him. He's not as physical as some of the other tight ends, like Theo, even probably a Platt, and a Green, right? Obviously, Green is my guy, but from what I can tell, he's still coming back from the injury a little bit, and he's getting a little more comfortable every practice, so on and so forth. But you can see his cuts ain't quite as crisp still as they were, towards the end of his freshman year and the routes that he was running back then. So, he's going to get better and better as things go forward. I'm excited to see that progression. I feel like it might take him a few games before we start to see him getting more and more time on the field. And, I think Theo is starting to look, he's a big body, dude. He is a big body, and he's starting to figure out the physicality of the game a little bit. And so I'm excited to see where they use him some. And because of those guys, because of those guys, I think Platt's probably, I don't know, limited on what he does offensively this year, but used in special teams and things like that. I'm excited for Platt going forward for sure. And I think he's got everything, right? He can be a big physical blocker. He can be a threat in the passing game. I just think it looks like on this team with these guys, those other guys are going to get the reps in front of him for right now. Now, if Green doesn't quite continue his progress with the injury like we expect him to, maybe Platt takes some of those reps. I expect, though, and this is important for the tight end group, multiple tight end sets. I wouldn't be surprised to see 2 tight end sets out there, a significant amount. What is a significant amount? I don't know. 15-20% of the time. But more sets than we have in the past, seen with 2 tight ends and getting those guys out there and making those guys available. So, they're going to get some playing time. I think that you're going to see a little bit of a rotation, but I would expect that to start with, it's a lot of Trey Watson, maybe Theo. And as the year goes on, maybe it's Trey Watson and Green, some Theo rotating in there. And then, that's what I would expect as far as the depth chart early on and into the season. Offensive line wise, and we've had a lot of discussions about where this offensive line is going to go, who's going to be where, and the different spots they're in and where they're going. I have a pretty good feeling that I can name 4 of the starters right now. I've got a pretty good feeling I can name 4 of the starters right now. I'm excited to see these guys. And, the 5th guy is in a big time competition. Whoever it is, he's in a big time competition. But going from left to right, Trey Zune is going to be your left tackle. I don't think anybody's questioning that. He's the guy. Besantis looks like he's going to be on the left guard side. And look, this dude is made to play guard. He should never been out at tackle last year, right? He's going to be a much better guard than he ever was at tackle. He's a powerful, big, powerful lineman, and he's aggressive. He's got some meanness to him. He's got a little, get in the dirt and get ready to Royal Rumble to him, right? That's the aggressiveness that we like out of those guards. I expect him to be that guy on this team. Dog. And in his second year, with lots of playing experience, under a better coach that's actually teaching technique and doing the things, and you can see it out there on the practice field, I think Besantis is going to excel as that guard right there. And he's going to take that position. I don't know who the center is going to be yet. And I know that's a big one, but that's the one. That's the one. And we're going to talk about the center position and the guys competing for that in a minute. Right guard, Reed Adams. I think that's going to be the guy that ends up taking that right guard spot. He's another guy that brings an attitude to this offensive line. And to me, the fact that you got both of those guard positions with guys that have that sort of attitude and want to go be physical and get dirty and go, just punk some dudes in the up front, those types of guys. I love that we have 2 of those guys at guard inside, because we've been missing that. We've been missing that the last couple of years. And I think now with this group, this offensive line is really gonna start to gel. Does that mean that they're going to be the best offensive line in the country? No. Look, we've got a long ways to climb from where we were last year. But I think already just with those 2 guys, it becoming the 2 guards, you've already made progress. And now from there, they just have to get better and better and better week in and week out. And they're going to get a test right off the bat in Notre Dame, as we've talked about, right? But they're going to get tests all year because they play in the SEC, where the best defensive linemen in the country play. And those guys better be ready to roll. And then at the right tackle, it's going to be Fothery. It's going to be Fothery. And Reuben Fothery is now one of the leaders. The guys around him have said it. Like, this is one of the guys. he's a leader for this offensive line. And when we were in the offensive line room, that's the guy. Him, obviously, Zune has stepped into that role. And so that dude's gonna take his place where he should be. Injuries limited him last year, right? Bad coaching limited him in the last 2 years. But that dude is going to be a great right tackle this year. I'm excited to see Father back on the field at his best with proper coaching. I'm excited for that. Is because he's got movement skills, man. And at tackle for his size, a guy that moves that well, that's impressive. That is not something that is common. I'm excited to see it. And then what's going to happen at center? Well, I think right now, and probably game one, you're probably looking at a battle between Kalinu and Nabu, right? Nabu. And Dewberry's in there, but I think Dewberry's still a little hurt. So I don't think that he's going to be the guy game one. I certainly hope that as the year goes along, Dewberry's getting reps somewhere at guard, at center, wherever it is, right? Because I think that dude is going to be an excellent offensive lineman here at Texas A&M. If it's not this year, maybe it's next year. As some of these other guys move on to the next level, but this competition at center is going to be pretty big, right? The center position, obviously, a lot to do as a leader as far as that offensive line, making calls and doing all those things. Snapping the football, that's an important aspect of it. But which one of those guys takes the reins on that, right? And sometimes, and I'll tell you this from coaching experience from when I was coaching the offensive line, we had a kid that was a coach's son, who's now a coach, by the way, and he was a senior, and he was, like I said, coach's son, been playing center for his entire career, and we had a kid underneath him who was a sophomore that probably was the better one-on-one blocker, the more physical guy at the point of attack, and that's fine. But for some reason, when that kid was in there, the rest of the offensive line played worse than when we had our senior leader in there making plays, making calls, right? And so you're not just looking at how's he doing one-on-one, but how's he working with these other guys to make sure that the offensive line as a unit is playing at its most cohesive, ability. So having said that, which one of those two guys does that? I don't know yet. I don't know. I haven't seen enough interaction between them and how the lines sort of play together. But there's going to be plenty of opportunity for that coaching staff to see both of those. I feel fairly comfortable with either one of those guys in there. I mean, Colino is a guy coming from Utah, got a team that had a pretty good offensive line, good run game, good physical play up front. And I think Nabu, has done a great job here at A&M in the positions he's filled. He's sort of been a little bit of everywhere. I'd like to see him focused in on one position. That's what he's sort of doing right now. It looks like a little bit more focus on the center spot, and hopefully from there being able to continue to gain confidence and learn that position. It's going to be a good battle. It's going to be a tough battle. If I had to call the game one starter right now, I think it's Nabu. Because of his familiarity with this team, with the players around him, with those things, right? Like the fact that he's been here a little longer, participated through this process. So I think it's Nabu, and we'll see. Maybe Colino ends up showing that he's just that good. That's a good problem to have. Good problem to have. And that's the offense, folks. That's the offense. Those are the guys you can expect to see on the team, on the field. You're going to see, I'm hopeful that Dewberry gets himself healthy enough to get into that rotation. Also, I love the kid. I think 2 years ago, he might have been our best offensive lineman at one point. Maybe because of the fact that he was a freshman and hadn't gotten screwed up by the offensive line coaches yet. So, I like what that kid brings to the table. And like I said, get healthy. Let's get you out on the field when you are healthy. Most importantly, I think that group has a lot of guys that are dedicated to what they're doing on that football field. It's not necessarily the flash, it's not necessarily the divas, it's not necessarily any of that stuff, right? It's the guys, a lot of guys that come in and work. And to me, I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the fact that you're your first team offensive guys, your leaders are the biggest workers, right? That's huge. And so let's talk about the defense, because I think the defense has the same thing. And that's what is exciting about this team. That's what's exciting about this team. Let's start up front at defensive tackle, where you've got, look, Shamar Turner is going to be a game wrecker, if you ask me. I think that dude's about to have a monster year moving into defensive tackle. I am legitimately excited about what that guy can do. Look, he's replacing two guys that were big time performers here at A&M. McKinley Jackson is in the pros now for a reason. That dude was a game changer, especially when he was healthy there. He had some injury issues, but that guy was game. Turner's taking that spot, right? Nolan is a guy that was a big time recruit. I thought Turner had a better year than Nolan last year, right? Turner had a better year than Nolan last year. He sometimes took plays off. We didn't know if he was going to bring it that play or not. However, I think that's a step up right now, but both of those guys are gone. So who's next? Well, Albert Regis, DJ Hicks, Rodus Johnson. That 4-man rotation to me is really darn good. I don't know. I really don't know. And I think this is the big battle between Regis and Hicks. Who's starting next to Shamar? Right? Between Hicks and Johnson, Hicks and Regis, right? Which one of those guys is starting next to Shamar? Regis has really done a great job. He's a leader on this. The way he works, I think, makes him a leader, right? He has shown a work ethic that is above and beyond. He's not the same level of athlete that some of these guys that showed up as 5 stars on this team, but he's worked himself from 2 years ago, worked himself into the rotation with those 5-star guys, ahead of guys like Brunlow Dindy, right? So I'm excited to see where he's at. And I think he's going to be one of those, he's going to either be with that first group or second group. He's getting rotations in there, D tackle. And then, like I said, Hicks is definitely going to get some rotations in there. Can he be a starter? Is he going to be a guy coming off the bench in the second group that maybe sometimes plays with the first group, right? Like some of those rotations. I expect big things out of Rodus Johnson. I've said this before. I think he's going to be a contributor, and he's a guy that, unlike some of these other guys, has a ton of playing experience in a big time conference in the Big Ten. He's not playing in the WAC or the whatever, the MAC or the American whatever, right? He came from the Big Ten, big time conference, big time players out there. I'd expect Rodus Johnson, and I know Rodus Johnson's going to be a contributor, big time contributor, and into that heavy into that defensive line rotation, defensive tackle rotation. I think the guy is Shamar, but I think the pieces around him at defensive tackle are excellent. You're going to see a little bit of Kaliskar. Kaliskar, is that how you say it? Kaliskar? I don't know. The transfer coming in, he's making noise, right? But he's in a group kind of behind this guy. But you know what's interesting? I think he sort of showed a little bit more than maybe some of the guys that people expected, like a Brunlow Dindy, right? Everybody keeps asking about him. I like what I'm seeing from some of these guys that maybe weren't the top rated guys or whatever, but have come in and just absolutely busted their butts. To me, that's exciting. And I think that's what you want out of your defensive tackle group, right? I'm interested to see where TAMU comes in and how much time he gets in there. think part of his deal is going to maybe he gets a role in the goal line type situations or whatever. But see how much he gets into that rotation. He's still got a ways to go. When this group, as he grows into next year and so on and so forth, he's going to get into the rotation in time. Question is it going to be this year? Brunlo Dindy, I never know, because honestly, I haven't seen it out of him. I haven't, he's been on campus now for 2 years. I haven't seen it out of him. Can he stay healthy? One, is he going to put the work into? We'll see. We'll see if he gets into that rotation. He's got some athletic gifts, but he just hasn't been able to put it together. We'll see if he does. The best position on this team, I don't know. The best position is definitely defensive end, if you ask me. This is where I have no worries about where this team is, and I think it's critically important that some of the things that are done with this defense involve the defensive ends being true defensive ends. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about big-time defensive ends that are pass rush defensive ends. Get off the ball and go whoop an offensive tackle type defensive ends. And we got those guys. Nick Scorton is going to have a monster year. Cassius Howe going to have a big year. But Stewart is also doing an excellent job out there. And, I don't know. He came in as a 5-star with tons of hype, and he doesn't have that, just sort of explosive get off that you see from, a guy like Myles Garrett, Von Miller, right? He's not that kind of defensive end, but he's extremely powerful. And I think he's getting better and better getting off the ball and doing those things. He's never going to be your 12-sack guy. But I do expect that he's going to be a big time contributor. And here's what's going to happen with him is I think as you get into passing downs, you're going to see Shamar Stewart move inside. And now all of a sudden he's going to be disruptive on the inside against guards in the center. And to me, that's such a valuable piece to have on that defensive line. Start out on the move to the inside. And who are you going to bring in? Well, you got Scorton, you got Howe, Ryland Kennedy making tons of noise out there. And it's looking explosive off the edge, I think they've had to sort of make sure that he can handle some of the run game stuff, but I think he's getting in that mix a lot. I like Malik Silla. I think he's super explosive, and he'd be a guy that I'd love in pass rush downs out there. He's not getting the same pub as some of these other guys yet. We'll see what we see from him as the fall camp continues. But if you think about a 4-man rotation with Stewart, Scorton, Howe, and Kennedy, freshman Solomon Williams is getting some good pub as well. You got depth. And some of these guys are going to come in on third down situations into the, move maybe a Scorton and Stewart to the inside, and maybe a Howe to the inside, leave Scorton outside, and then bring Kennedy and Silla off that. I mean, that's going to be NASCAR, baby. NASCAR. Get your butt off the edge and go get it. There's going to be rotations and there's going to be packages. I'm excited for that defensive line group because of the fact that there's so many guys and so many different types of bodies. Awesome stuff. Linebacker may be my biggest concern. Not Torian York. We know he is the captain of this defense. We know he is the guy that's going to take care of things inside of the box, right? He is the downhill guy. Is he the athletic guy like Cooper last year? No. Is he the sideline guy? No. Is he the guy you really want out in coverage? Not necessarily, right? But he's going to get the defense in the right place, in the right calls. And he's going to be in the right place at the right time. He's not the Has he developed as an athlete? Sure, he's better than he was last year. Is he a top echelon type athlete that you're seeing out there on the field? No, but he's smarter, right? So he's going to be there quicker. There's going to be no wasted movement. The dude's going to read the play. I mean, I'm excited to see him play, but he is one type of linebacker. Who's going to play the other one? Who's going to line up next to him? And right now, who does that look like? I mean, it looks like it could be Scooby Williams, could be Sanford, it could be the Shields. And all those guys are competing. The Shields just showed up in the summertime, right? But if you look at one thing that's consistent of all three of those guys, a lot more athletic type bodies, right? They're more athletic. They're runners, right? Those guys can get sideline to sideline. And that's what you want to see out of that group. Same as an Edgerrin Cooper. Is any one of these guys Edgerrin Cooper? No, probably not. I mean, Edgerrin Cooper was a, stud last year, right? Should have been a stud two years in a row. But one of these guys is going to have to step into that role and be able to do it. And actually not just one, right? I mean, I do expect that there's going to be some rotating and different things. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's not a different package, maybe a guy that you want in there on certain downs, certain things of that nature, based off of who does what best, right? You're going to bring some pressure. Maybe you got a guy that you want to bring off the edge more than the other guys. If you're going to put them in coverage, what are you going to do there, right? Who do you want there? Versus on a rundown, things like that. So, I think those guys are probably all going to play. I would bet right now that the starter is probably Scooby Williams. Game one. And wouldn't be surprised if that changes in the middle of the season, by the way. Let's move to cornerback. Because all of a sudden, this cornerback group, I think, we talked about the defensive end unit being the most talented unit out there. It could be the cornerback could be the deepest. What a change from last year to this year. Right now, I think your top four are probably Lee, Javon Thomas, Mays, and Saunders. Guys that have played, guys got some experience. Javon Thomas, a guy that is a supreme athlete and got some playing time on this defense last year. I talked about the fact that he gave up some stuff, but you go watch him, he's got the tools. But then you add, and this was impressive to hear from the coaching staff, I talked about it earlier, Ricks and Bussy to this group who are supreme athletes, my friend. Supreme athletes. And that is a cornerback room that is deep and talented. I'm excited to see this group because I'm excited also to see a better coached defensive back group. I'm excited to see a better coached cornerback group, right? Guys that can actually make plays on the ball, that are going to be coached to make plays on the ball. This is exciting for me. And I actually think that there's going to be a rotation. Sometimes, with some teams, you see your two guys out there on the island, they're going to stay out there. I'm excited to see rotation there. Maybe matchup situations, right? Get in there and do those things. There's so many of these guys that have the ability to play. This is complete turnaround and maybe the best job of any from Coach Elko as far as building this roster and what he's done with his cornerback room. And we haven't even started talking about the nickelbacks, right? We expect Chappelle to be in at nickel, Hill, Bravion Rogers, all competing there. I think Chappelle's that guy. I think he's going to take the reins at nickel, and I think you're going to get some rotation in there from the other guys, but I think Chappelle's your man. He's one, and the other two guys are 2, 3, BC, B1, B2, right? I feel very comfortable with that, though. I feel very comfortable with that. And then safety. From what I've seen, I think two guys have started to stand out a little bit at safety. I mean, one is Bryce Anderson, who I think is going to be an absolute monster and looks great out there right now. He is responding. He's breaking on balls. He is seeing things. I mean, and he is responding quickly. diagnosing, getting after it, quickly. I'm excited for what his role is going to be on this defense as a deep safety and doing the things that he does, because he sees the game. He sees the game in front of him. I'm excited for that. And the guy that's really stood out to me next to him, Jones. We didn't see him much in the spring, right? There's some injuries and whatnot. He's looking really good. And I do believe he's overtaken a guy like Ratcliffe, for example. Maybe also a Brooks. And I think your two starting safeties are probably Anderson and Jones. And then you're bringing in a Brooks into the mix as well, who's really looked pretty good as well. Still, just not he to me, he doesn't, he hadn't had as much experience, one, and so he's still developing that sense of, where things are developing and how reading the offensive play, the reads on it, right? He's not as quick to react. And you can be fast physically, but you have to be more faster mentally, right? And he's getting there. He's getting better, but he's a step behind those other two guys. And then Ratcliffe is in the mix too. But to me, Ratcliffe is a guy that, I mean, one, he's huge, right? I wouldn't be surprised if we see Ratcliffe and move into more of a nickel role at times. He doesn't have the same change of direction ability as some of these other guys, right? He's so big and lanky, right? But in certain matchups and certain things, you're going to want a guy like that that's going to be more in the box type guy, right? And we'll see how that develops. I think he's the next guy out there, but he's not in that starting group, and he's behind Rogers. Brooks also. That's what I think we're going to see. We've got about 3 weeks, I think, 3 weeks before game time. We'll know a lot more in 3 weeks. It's going to be so much fun. So much fun. So much fun. Questions from the tailgate, man. What's the chances this team makes the playoffs? Woo. I mean, I think I did a show where I predicted that this team could go 12-0. They'd probably make the playoffs there. I think my point with that is that they don't face any team on this schedule that they cannot beat. Does that mean they're going to win them all? No. Do I think they're going to win them all? No. I don't think they're going to go undefeated. But I do think that 10-2 is a real possibility, and maybe even a likelihood. And at 10-2, they're going to get in the playoffs, by the way. If they beat Notre Dame week 1, they're going to make the playoffs. I'm just going to put it out there. They beat Notre Dame week 1, they're going to make the playoffs. I'd make that bet. I might make the bet anyway. I will be in Vegas in a couple of weeks, so I'll have that opportunity. So what do I think the chances are? I think it's like 50-50. I think it's 50-50 because of the fact that I'm very excited about the coaching change. Because of it's not just about Elko versus Jimbo. It's about all the position coaches that Elko brought in with him. And I think we're better at so many spots. Maybe not at defensive line as far as coaching is concerned. I'm not saying anything bad about the current defensive line coaches, but I really loved our guy last year. I really loved our guy. So I'm not sure, but you can see it out there. At the majority of these positions, we are better. And I think that's awesome, actually. I'm just excited about that. Because I always think that I know that the talent is enough. I know the facilities are enough. I know that the fan base is enough. I'm excited. 50-50 shot. That's what I say. Will the defense or offense be ranked higher nationally at the end of the year? I've talked about how excited I am to see this Colin Klein offense with this level of talent and the things that they're going to do. And I like Colin Klein, and I think one of the things that this offense is going to benefit from is their production inside the red zone. But I don't think there's any question that this defense has an opportunity to be a top 10 nationally ranked defense, maybe top 5 nationally ranked defense. And for that reason, I think the defense is going to be the better unit. I'm not saying the offense isn't going to be good. And, I've shared my concerns about the defense, but ultimately, the more I see this group come together defensively, and especially, the things that they're doing defensive line wise and cornerback wise, and the guys that are stepping up into those roles, I think this defense has a chance to be really, really good. And not just on this side, but also if you think about the teams that we're playing. And I think if you look at who are the best offenses that we face this year, I think you're probably looking at Texas, right? At least going into the season, they've got to replace a lot, but Sark's got a way about calling plays and play design really more than anything else that they're going to be tough, right? They've got players. They've got players, but probably Texas is the best offense we face this year. Probably. But who's number 2? I don't know. Mizzou? They were pretty good last year. They got maybe the best wide receiver in the country. So maybe Mizzou, but I don't know. Is it Florida? They started to do some things last year. I'm not all that sold on Florida. I don't think Mertz is great. I think he's a guy that's played a lot of football and can make, some good decisions. LSU, coming off of the guys that they lost, losing their coordinator. Notre Dame, maybe? I don't know. So I guess my point is that there's a chance that we face a group of offenses that isn't the toughest group of offenses that anybody's going to face in the country, right? And for that reason, that gives our defense an opportunity to be ranked even higher. I'm excited about this defense. I think they have a chance. That's all I got, fellas. That's what we got today. Next week, we'll come back with some more. Giga Maggies, AP, from the tailgate. Peace out.